Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to Elevate Podcast, everyone. It's so great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh.
And Reg.
And we're grateful to be back on with you yet again on this post-Stanley Cup Final Tuesday. We're excited to be with you. There is so much to get into. Well, first off, we have our government might actually be doing something for the first time that's actually in the interest of Canadians of limiting and putting tariffs on Chinese-built EVs coming into the country. We'll be getting into that. As well, there's a by-election happening in Toronto that's not going too well in the lead-up, and the Liberals are a little scared about this. And then as well, we'll talking to, the boogeyman in the room, the one that people are afraid to talk about is immigration. What's happening? A lot of kind of spiciness happening around the issue of immigration coming out of Pierre Poilievre, his campaign, and as well, his group of people. And then as well, Rebel News doing Rebel News things. This and so much more. Reg, how you feeling, big dog?
I'm doing good. This weekend was a weekend of big wins. I had the parents down, so they helped me do a whole bunch of stuff around the house, which was really appreciated. And then also on Saturday, I did my presentation and am one step closer to my designation. So I finished a 3-year-long program that I was doing out of Simon Fraser University on evaluation. So got that done. Got the certificate to add to my collection.
Let's go. Shout out certificates.
So yeah, I can pretty much wallpaper a room now. It's great. So
I'm so happy for it, man.
Thank you. So that was a huge win because that was a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And then also at the same time, I was supposed to finish my presentation, supposed to finish my my paper, which was many pages long. And Dad's like, "Do you want to watch the Oilers game?" I was like, "Heck yeah, I do." Set up the projector. Let's go get some snacks.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I was like, crap. I watched the Oilers game until midnight and then I had to get up at like 4:30 and start that presentation. Oh yeah, I worked from 4:30 in the morning right up until 12:30 that midday so that I could present at 1. So
oh my gosh. It was worth it though.
Yeah, it's done. It's in. They're like, this is great. This looks excellent. I got like a few comments on things that I can improve, but that's academia for you. So that's great. And overall, yeah, it was a lot of W's.
Look at you go, man. That's awesome. Happy for you.
Yeah, and it was worth it to watch the goalie there, Skinner. I thought that was so cool. He makes the save and then gets the assist. I was like, that was fun.
Yeah, we're here for the apples. Happy for him. Yeah, it's kind of weird because right now we're recording right before puck drop happening this Monday evening. So we're talking kind of as people in the past. So we have no idea what happens, but you're gonna wake up to this episode of knowing the result of this game. Probably the craziest Stanley Cup final I've seen in years.
Yeah,
years.
Well, my prediction is the Oilers are going to take it, honestly. So I watched this one guy who had been on Spitting Chicklets there for a bit.
Yeah.
And he was saying, he's like, you have to look at the teams that have the most Canadians. He's like, those are the teams that win. And, this guy's American. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So anyway, they were saying about how the Oilers have quite a substantial amount of Canadians. So they're predicting an Oilers win. And I'm like, yeah, well, after the games that I've watched, 8-1 in a Stanley playoffs game, I mean, that's significant. Yeah. So I don't know. I think they're going to take it. And I know that hurts your Calgary Flames little soul, but
I'll tell you this straight up. So yeah, I'm a Calgary Flames fan. So naturally, I hate the Oilers. Naturally, I think they're pieces of trash and their fan base sucks out loud. And that's kind of where the perspective I'm coming from on it. But I'm a sports fan. I enjoy sports, enjoy the game of hockey. And I'm, 100%, I really believe Panthers were going to take it all this year. The way they were playing, the way that they were getting on it, I was like, oh boy, they're a scary looking team. And admittedly, Tkachuk has a soft place in my heart as he used to play for Calgary. We drafted him. Then obviously he went to Florida and, been rooting for him since. So I was like, yeah, come on, let's see what happens. And then the Panthers did what the Panthers did in the beginning of the series. And I was like, these Oilers don't belong here, man. Like, how did they even get here? These guys suck. Then McDavid woke up. Then the rest of their team woke up. And they did that 8-1, which I expected a pushback in that fourth game. That was predictable to me. I expected them to at least take game 4. They weren't getting swept. That wasn't going to happen. But I was surprised at game 5. Really surprised at game 6. And I'm like, here we are in a game 7. And I'll say this. With where my allegiances lie, I am 100% more of a fan of drama. I love storylines. And I've been even on this podcast, I've been critical of the NHL and their marketing teams over the years because they don't know how to friggin' market this product. But the past 2 years, they've really upped their game. And they've been waiting for an opportunity like this to finally market the game. This is the perfect year to do it. The NBA Finals was an absolute flop. That sucked. It's the best thing you could have asked for because NHL is always competing with NBA viewership. This time of year always happens. So the fact that it finished off early and it was boring to watch, then you had the dramatics of the NHL. This is everything they could be asking for. And this is cinema.
Yeah.
84 years since something like this has happened. Connor McDavid, the man, the myth, the legend, walking in Wayne Gretzky's footsteps of his 5 cups in Edmonton. Can McDavid get one of his own? The Panthers, a team from out of nowhere, Sunrise, Florida, just taking over the league by storm. Can they do it? Can Paul Maurice finally get a cup after all his years coaching? So much going on. If I'm being honest, I'll be happy for both sides, whoever ends up winning. Super stoked. But hate to say it, I haven't been this excited for a Stanley Cup final since 2004. 2004 is when my Flames made their run. That was the last time I was this excited. This has been a really fun to watch. Great time to be a hockey fan. So, I have to say, I hate the Oilers, but I am rooting for McDavid.
Yeah.
He's a guy I really have a hard time hating. Kind of how a lot of Oilers fans, Canucks fans have felt about Jerome McGinley back in the day. Hated playing against him, but man, he's hard to hate. Like, he's just a nice guy, and he plays hard. How can you hate that? I feel the same about McDavid, and we'll see what happens.
I love the memes, though. They're like, McJesus has risen. I was like, that's amazing.
Oh, gee. Yeah, so I'll be excited. I'm hoping. I think again, regardless of the result, I'll be happy. But, oh, man, I would love to see it.
Yeah.
See McDavid pull it off.
Yeah, so how are you doing? How was your weekend? What did you put in?
What did I put in? Gee, do you really want to ask me?
I do.
It's not been a good time for you, boy. All right. Let's just say I'm gonna be vague, but somewhat specific at the same time. Let's just say never volunteer ever is what I'm gonna say. Okay.
No good deed goes unpunished. Right?
Unreal. This little work. I've been volunteering for quite some time. This is the first year I'm like, y'all, I'm done. I'm done. I'm at my wit's end. And it all wraps up here in a few weeks' time. But I'm just like, man, it stinks.
Yeah.
And so I'm at my my threshold at the moment, just cruising along, doing what I got to do. Do it for the people. We love the people. But yeah, I was just say volunteering's overrated. Straight up.
That's awesome. I had to laugh because I'm just thinking like you dealing with the public in your volunteer roles and then me dealing with the public in my work roles. Like, the public needs to calm down right now.
Seriously,
like,
chill out.
Get angry at other things.
Yeah.
Like, stop shooting the messengers.
Yeah. People who are just trying to live their lives, doing the best they can. We're not the people that come after. We're not the people that come. But I know we got some things in the news. We spent the first 10 minutes talking about things that have already happened by the time this recording is posted. What's been happened this past week? Things that are going on that we need to touch on quickly here, Reg.
Yeah, so recently Trudeau is spending more of our hard-earned cash. At least this time I can actually get behind it a bit.
Oh, wow.
So they are giving $125 million to the Mi'kmaq people here in Nova Scotia to settle a land claim that rightfully so, they were kind of pretty much tricked out of a lot of their property, and it became very valuable. And the government's like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have done that. That was kind of crappy of us. And so they actually ended up settling that claim for $125 million. And so it was funny because I had a friend who was like, I I can't believe they would just give away 125 million. I was like, they gave 5 billion to the Ukraine. Like, at least give the people who lived here first some money. Like, come on. Anyway, so that was one of the announcements. The other announcement was 16 million in annual funding for infrastructure for 13 Mi'kmaq communities. So that includes necessary upgrades for, like I said, infrastructure, as well as money going towards some education. So to help people on reserve actually get back up to median living standards, and then also help people access some more education. So all good things. Like I said, I like to see money invested in people in Canada.
Yeah, imagine that.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, we'll take the dubs as they come.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, and it couldn't happen to a nicer group of people. So I'm glad. And then the big thing that made me real mad, though.
Oh no!
So everybody heard my rant last week.
Don't volunteer.
No, everybody heard my rant on the carbon tax.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, I beat that horse to a pulp. It is so dead. Like, it's already turned into carbon and gone into the atmosphere again. But no, there's more. So I'll spare you all and keep it real short. Basically, the CBC came out and they're like, we've done this investigative study. We've determined that the real culprit for Canada's climate change, the real reason why we're the worst, is because of all the oil we export. And so they were looking at the fact, they were saying the amount of oil and natural gas products that we export, that's what the problem is. So we need to stop our exports.
Oh, gee.
That was a claim.
Oh, the things that we make us money. Okay, got it. Yeah, okay,
exactly.
cool.
So don't be exporting the natural gas and the oil, because that's contributing more carbon emissions and more greenhouse gases than all of the Canadian activities combined.
Oh, wow.
And so what they were saying is that we aren't being fair because we're not accounting for the amount that we're exporting. So that exported product now creating carbon emissions is really on us. And so I was like, that's a load of crap. Because if you look at China, you look at India.
Oh, don't be racist.
Two of the largest emitters.
Oh, you can't talk about
on the
that.
Planet, China emits more greenhouse gas than any other country, and all countries combined on the face of the earth.
I thought we were past this anti-Asian hate, sir. What are we doing here?
So I was just like, okay, that's cool. Then India comes right in second. So China, 14,000 megatons of greenhouse gas. India, 3,400. So that's the number one and number two in the world. Ooh. Okay. So to put that in perspective, Canada, 700. So, so yeah, quite a bit. And so I was looking at the fact that, like, if we combine China and India's China, I know, right? China and India's carbon emissions, and when we just said we were only exporting to those two countries, we would account for 5% of their emissions. I was like, give me a break. And then not to mention the fact that China is also the world's largest consumer of coal at 4.2 billion tons of coal. India, second. Go figure.
Gee.
The two largest emitters using the two dirtiest fuel sources. And they're at 1 billion. So it's a 1 to 4 there with China and India. So a grand total of 5 billion tons of coal each year to fund their energy, or fuel their energy, sorry. And so it's more than the rest of the world combined, again. And so when we look at coal is 2.4 times more harmful and creates more emissions than natural gas. What does Canada have a lot of that, we could literally cut their emissions in half?
Oh, I don't know. Our whining?
Must be.
Oh.
I mean, Okanagan's doing great, and so is the Annapolis Valley, and you got the whole wine region in Niagara. So.
Oh, you're thinking about the other whining.
Oh. I'm here for the booze.
What is it, Reg? What do we have?
We have natural gas.
Oh, snap. We have that?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow.
So, and what is that going to do? Well, if you sell it, make you pretty prosperous, don't you think?
Wow. No, we don't want that, though. We want to impoverish our people.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you heard me last week. Sell the natural gas. But now we have the information to show that you would, over half of the emissions that they're producing, we could cut that in half by just switching them from coal to natural gas.
Yeah.
And they're like, Canada needs to take responsibility for the emissions in the world. I'm like, cool, let's do it. And let's make some money off of it.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Yep.
I'm all in.
And Yeah, so that was what really set me off. And then
Understandable.
the last couple things is that NDP in Alberta, they
Mr. Nenshi.
just made Nenshi their leader.
Saw that coming.
So yeah, he had a lot of fun leaving Calgary's infrastructure in ruins. He's gonna go for the whole province this time. See what he can do. And so something else that I thought was interesting too was on the top of India again. So study permits for Indian students have dropped by 85%. And so that's something that the rental markets are actually looking into. You can actually go listen to Daniel Foch talk about it a bit. But yeah, this is prior to the student cap. They're saying, nope, we don't want to come to Canada. And they're looking at what's happening in PEI with those protesters, some protesters in Toronto as well. And they're like, nope, not coming to Canada. And the comments from the Canadian public, let's just say you can go read them yourself because I'm not going to repeat them. But they are, what's another word for wild that is more wild?
Oh, yeah,
they're egregious.
fair play. I can imagine. Those comment sections are something else, as we realized last week.
Yeah. So. Oh, man. The worst part is I thought that was so funny. I showed a coworker at work. He thought that was so funny. The two of us, we decided to show our other coworker.
Oh, no.
They did not.
Oh, that was not funny.
I was like, ooh.
Yeah, we don't make fun of people's appearances here.
Yeah, pick your people like well.
Yeah.
It's not something to share with everybody. And the last thing that I just thought would be interesting to kind of call out was the fact that so the criminal trial for Mr. Pat King, who was the leader, the quote unquote leader of the Freedom Convoy, that started to take place a couple weeks ago in May. And so far, there's been nothing. Everything's been very silent on what's happened there.
Surprise.
Yeah, I looked hard. I looked long. I looked far. I could not find boo on how that trial's going.
I'm not surprised.
So I don't know if anybody else is a better sleuth than I am and knows how to navigate like public documents with the courts and can find out how that's going. But so far, I've heard nothing. It's crickets. So that tells me either it's going real well for Mr. King or it's going real bad and they don't want to stir up the public.
Oh, yeah.
So it's one of either way. I don't know, but we'll see.
So this is one thing I have a question about is, so all the Indians that we've been immigrating here to Canada, you think this is a Trojan horse to try and siphon India's population so they don't give as many greenhouse gases to the world? Conspiracy.
Yeah, we're not going to go there. That's stupid, Josh.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes you just got to have fun with it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that stat about the drop of 85% of applicants is pretty, student permits, it's pretty crazy.
Well, yeah, because what I'm thinking too is like on one hand, it's going to be beneficial to the rental industry because that's what usually happens is for temporary foreign workers, students, they're usually the bulk users of a lot of rentals. So it's going to actually be good for our housing crisis in that way. What it's not going to be good for is for those smaller smaller educational institutions, which are more like financial generators.
Yeah.
They're the ones that are going to suffer because they're already losing it over the student cap. And so if the student cap isn't even really necessary because they're not getting those students anyway, might be interesting to see what happens to some of those smaller schools. They might be in crisis and might need some government funding. So you might see Trudeau open up the Canadian wallet again.
Let's hopefully not. Let's hope we, for the first time in this government's history, use capitalism and let them die. I'm so over post-secondary education. It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet and see if you can actually deliver a valuable service that's not just hoping and preying on people's hopes and dreams.
Speaking of predatory education with immigrants, that's the worst segue ever. Let's talk about it.
What are we talking about? That wasn't where we're going to.
I thought we were going to immigration with Mr. Poilievre.
No. We're going to tariffs on China.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, it's all good. Oh, my gosh. I was like, well, we're going left turn here. So I thought this was kind of an interesting story that came up. So Canada takes step toward boosting tariff regime on Chinese EVs by announcing consultation. And we have a beautiful, beautiful picture of Mr. Freeland there. Says Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland made the announcement in Vaughan, Ontario. She said that the consultations, which begin July 2nd, will help the government craft its response to Beijing. Canadian auto workers and the auto sector are facing unfair competition from China's intentional state-directed policy of overcapacity that is undermining Canada's EV sector's ability to compete in domestic and global markets, Freeland said. This is what I thought was interesting because this is actual financial policy that I was like, whoa, I haven't really seen true policy from this government in quite some time. It's kind of nice to us talk about economics here. And so what's China's done here is they've overbuilt and oversupplied EVs in their country, and they're looking just to offload to other countries and just saturate the West with their technology and manufacturing. And it's a great deal for China because they get to offload their material. And it's also a great deal for Canadian consumers because these EVs are wicked cheap. So there's like, we're going to put tariffs on that to limit that because this is going to kill our own auto sector if we allow this to go. And so that's where they're trying to, quote unquote, level the playing field with putting tariffs on these Chinese made products.
So we see here, this is a problem, is that you have a government who's like, don't use gas legal. You're sleeping with Satan if you use gas.
That's true.
And then they're like, okay, well, here's all these cheap EVs so that we all can switch off gas. And they're like, don't buy those. You're supporting China if you do that. So it's like, make up your goddamn mind, Trudeau. What is it you want? And it's, to me, it's you just want everybody poor because it's like they're talking about China using their own government policies to boost the EV production, and they've been bankrolling it and funding it. And like, didn't Biden just release like trillions of dollars of stimulus directly going towards their own infrastructure and their own capacity to create things, and some of those things being battery capacitors, electric vehicles, etc. And so I'm like, how is that different? And then you've got Mr. Trudeau there spending money on the VW plant in Ontario and talking about how we need to support battery making capacity with taxpayer dollars in Canada. I'm like, it seems like everybody else is doing it. We're just doing it late. And so now we're upset. Now we're putting tariffs. I'm not against the tariffs, to be quite honest. Like, I think it's great. I think that we should really be focusing more on our own sustainability and growing at home. I just think that the reasoning they're putting on it is kind of bogus. I think they just need to come out and say like, hey, we were late to the table, late to the game, like we are with a lot of things. And now we have to try and tariff our way out of it because that's the reality of it. But
so there's part of me that thinks this is more political than that. I will say, no one wants to say it in the media because they don't want to instill fear or doubt into the populace. But we are currently in a world war, I would say, that China's on one side, we're and our allies are on another. I think this has more to do with the conflict at its hand at the moment than anything else. I don't think there's any trust in Chinese computing with their cars coming over here. I think that's a big part of this as well.
I totally agree. I mean, you look at the fact that you've got Russia every second day, like talking about like, we have the nukes and we can use them. and everyone's like, please don't. Yeah. And then you have, the European Union, the United States slapping on tariffs, and now Canada slapping on tariffs with them. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Australia's next and all the other folks that are in our like NATO agreement territories. Like, you know what I mean? I totally see that. I completely agree. Yeah. But yeah, I do think though that it is 100% a measure to try and limit the influence of China, but we're so in bed with them right now. It's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. We've been selling off to China for decades at this point. And it's at some point someone needs to reverse course. And I'm not saying this is the government who's going to do that. However, anything that's like, especially all this stuff isn't happening with foreign interference and all this, anything that's, anti-Beijing right now, I'm all for.
Yeah. Oh, so, yeah. I'm definitely with you. Like, I'll say, like, I'll throw you a bone and say, like, good job. Like, you did a thing right. I can count on one hand out of, 7 years how many things you've done right. And like, this one, thumbs up.
7 years. He can't even get the years right. That's how long it's been, man. So this was, I thought, was a surprise to me. It was kind of one of those eyebrow moments for me. I was like, oh, okay. I'll take where I can get, as you said. And we'll give him a bone. Hey, a clock is, broken clock's right twice a day. But we'll see where this goes. But Freeland's been on a tour lately, man. And we'll get into more of what she's been doing lately. But
one thing, though.
Yeah.
So one of the things that they had talked about too was that currently the producers of Teslas are, China, Shanghai. Mm-hmm. That's where they make them. And so I find it interesting that like the only the only EVs that are produced in China that are sold in North America right now are Teslas. Mm-hmm. I think it kind of goes right along with the fact that they all hate Musk too. So they're kind of like two birds, one stone. That's my conspiracy theory.
Well, so I would believe that to a point. It's just like Tesla has a lot of manufacturing facilities. They have one in Shanghai and on that side of the world. Everything else is back home in the States. So like I get it, but I don't know. As I say, I stick more towards this being a wartime measure than anything else.
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
But I guess, if you can hurt Elon to some degree, I'm sure they don't hate that either.
No, so, that's what I'm saying. It's not the reason why they're doing it.
Right.
I'm saying they're kind of like, oh, happy accident.
All right, Klaus, you got it. So this is something that happened that got really people's, one of those, as I said, eyebrow moments. It's one of those. Mm-hmm. So this is a CBC article. This is the title, headline. Truck with anti-Muslim messaging registered to Rebel News Network. Rebel News owner says truck belongs to organization, but ad was created by a third party. So this truck was found driving around Toronto, and it's just, groups of Muslims praying. And the messaging was, you think this is Iraq? Do you think this is Afghanistan? No, this is Canada. Wake up, Canada. That was the messaging on this truck. And it was just driving all around Toronto. And so they looked up the plates on the truck and like, who's this belong to? Found out it was a truck owned by Rebel News. And they interviewed and questioned Mr. Ezra. And he said that, yeah, it's a third party who's making it. We stand behind their message. And we just were, happened to be a conduit for that message. And obviously, when this gets the headlines of Rebel News and others, people get a little fired up about it. And even a Liberal MP uses as messaging in their on Twitter. And says this week, a protester spat in an MP's face, and a conservative media outlet drove hateful anti-Muslim advertising through the heart of Toronto as a glimpse of the Canada Pierre Poilievre is building. Check your choice. Don't check your privilege. Check your choice. So this was interesting.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Because I did see this, but I saw this a week or two ago.
Yeah.
Do they say anything against the Muslim community?
They do not.
That's the thing, right? Mm-hmm. So they say, is this Iraq? Is this Syria? No, this is Canada. Mm-hmm. Wake up. That's all they say. Mm-hmm. So
I believe they also said this. Canada's under siege.
Oh,
they did mention that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. See, this is where they went. They went wrong. Like I personally, I don't know what to think of it. I think it's just kind of it's just stirring up a lot of crap for no reason, honestly. To be quite honest, like this is just kind of like a distraction. I'm like, cool, Rebel News, but like we have foreign interference right now. We have people using the food banks. Like this is like so low on the priority list of things right now. Like that's where I'm at with this. Do I want to immigrate, 5,000 families from the Middle East right now when we have a housing crisis? No, but like, that's not what upsets me. Like that is, like I said, it's so far low in the totem pole. But what I was getting at with those questions was the fact that like, could they have gotten away with being like, what? It's not hate. Like,
yeah.
What? But if they said Canada's under siege, that's 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is like, I hate our hate speech laws here. I think they're very restrictive and I think they're very controlling, but if you're going to play within the rules, your point is right. If they just left that under siege part out, that they wouldn't have been able to get touched.
Well, wasn't it like Maxime Bernier that actually put a tweet out there? And I was like, oh man, he was so close. He almost had me agreeing with them. It was like something about, again, on immigration, basically, like we're in the middle of a crisis. Like, why do we think it's okay to immigrate people in the middle of a multiple crises at the same time? Healthcare, housing, food. And then he's just like, why do we need to take the worst of the world? I was like, oh man, like you had to throw that in the bottom of that. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, this is the issue with the right in general, where it's like, well, so much is going on right now. We need to have a hard stance on immigration, have a hard stance. I'm like, I hear you. Don't get me. I get where you're coming from on it. Things are like really uncertain right now. We don't know who's coming in, who's coming out of the country. Cultures are being imported that we don't have full control. I get it. It can be any type of uncertainty and doubt is spooky. And that's what people are feeling right now. They're scared. They're fearful. But this didn't happen. The stuff that we're dealing with today didn't happen overnight. A lot of the stuff, seeds have been planted over decades that got us here. So it's not going to be an overnight result and solution to all the things that we're seeing right now. You have to, you can't just turn around and be like, deport all the Muslims. We need to figure out, deport them. You can't do that. Because if you're trying to sway the masses, they're going to hear that and be like, you're racist.
Yeah.
I'm out. And you're going to lose the messaging, what you're trying to actually get across, which is like, no, it's just like mass immigration right now is a problem. It needs to be considered. We're not focusing on a specific group of people here. It's just in general, we don't have enough infrastructure right now to handle all the people that have been coming in. So let's talk about limiting that, and as well as seeing what other means that we can go about trying to settle this situation to make sure that people here are taken care of. But that's not, like, times conservatives get a little too fired up and hot under the collar.
Well, yeah, and that's the part that I think is like, this is an easy scapegoat. It's like, I don't care if they were coming from South Africa, if they were coming from India, if they're coming from China, if they're coming from the Middle East, they're coming from Ukraine. We just don't have the structure for people. Mm-hmm. We don't have the supports in place to support people effectively. And that should be the message. But, you know, in Rebel News fashion, they took it a whole. Then this is why I said before, like, I'm not a fan of Rebel News because, like, this crap.
Again, I'll be fair. Again, this is not Rebel News. This is their ad bus.
Right.
But the messaging came from a third party advertiser.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, lawyer Josh.
I just want to make sure you're okay. We're looking after each other, you know. But yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear on the details here. So, because Ezra will come on the show and be like, that's not, dude, you're wrong. And then they'll make the issue of that rather than.
Yeah. Well, that was misinformation, Reg. I've been doing a lot of that recently.
This happens when you bring our personal issues on the show.
Yeah.
Just that's not a personal issue between us. Just a heads up. We just want to make clear. Me and Reg are good. And we're okay here. So, anyways, I just thought that was it was interesting kind of seeing that run around Toronto, especially Toronto of all places, because let's be honest, that's the heart of a lot of where our immigrants go to is Toronto, specifically Vancouver, our bigger cities. So having that drive around, whoa.
Yeah, and that's the other part of it too, is that Canada's in a state right now where there's so little harmony right now. To throw gasoline on a fire, it just feels like it's unnecessary. We need people to actually be working together right now. It just feels crappy. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
I don't look at that and go, yeah, solutions. I look at that and I'm like, cool, you added another crap log to the fire. Thanks.
Yeah, I feel that. I'll go back to my conspiracy theory. I think that we're immigrating.
Oh my God.
Jokes. We're all jokes here. But yeah, but as I said, this is then used as cannon fodder, as we saw for his Liberal MP of this is Poilievre's Canada. Do you really want this? And again, as I said, we've talked about it too. It was we know Rebel News serves a purpose. A purpose that is needed at times. But yeah, they love to get people fired up, and that's kind of where things are going. And we move over to Poilievre talking about immigration.
Finally.
Wow. Sorry, sir. I didn't know he took this one personally here, But back in the same vein, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says that immigration numbers will be much lower if he becomes prime minister. It's impossible, he says, to invite 1.2 million new people to Canada every year. When you're building 200,000 housing units, it's impossible. There's no room. Quebec is at its breaking point, said Poilievre in an interview in French. That's the messaging. Simple.
Duh. Thank you. And what I don't understand is why everybody's just this is groundbreaking. It's no, it's not. This is what we've all been saying.
Our common sense conservatives.
You know what? I hate it that's the phrase, but it's true. Like, I really honestly like every time they're like common sense conservatives are going to do, I'm like, but yes, like honestly, it is common sense. It really is. You can't invite 1.2 million with only 200,000 homes. Like it's
simple.
It's very simple. The math is not mathing.
Yeah.
So
Math can be racist, apparently. I heard on the left.
I heard that.
Gee, 2 + 2 = 4 is also racist. So
is.
I can see why the math is offensive to those on the left.
Same with U-turn signs. I saw that.
Oh my gosh, that story was crazy, bro.
California. I don't know if any of you saw that, but basically they were like, this U-turn sign, no U-turns. it's homophobic, and they're like celebrating and taking down the U-turn sign, and the amount of people in the gay community who are just like,
get out.
No.
Just over this.
They were so mad, but back to Poilievre.
Yeah, back to Poilievre. So this goes back to kind of the initial topic we're talking about. That's why we kind of kept these together. Is people on the right are appreciative of this statement, but they don't think it goes far enough. They want a messaging similar to that of Trump down south of the border, where he has come out and said he's going to adopt the biggest deportation campaign that the country's ever seen. And that's what people want to hear. And people on the right, I should say, want to hear. And so that this isn't, to them, this isn't enough. But I need to remind you, we are in Canada. There's no way, even if that was on Poilievre's radar, he's never going to say that. Because we talked about being dismissed. Like that's too harsh for people. Like we can't even entertain that conversation up here. That won't happen.
I just think it'd be hard because like if you have people here who've integrated into their communities and have forged relationships with people at work and at their place of worship, like, you know what I mean? Like and then you rip those people out because you're like, oh, sorry, we don't like you. You immigrated in the last 2 years, so see ya. I think that would be, I don't know. I don't like it. But what I am seeing happen in the UK right now is they've actually got a deal. I can't remember which African nation that they have this deal with, but they're deporting people back to Africa, and they've got to deal with that. And so what they're doing is they're actually deporting illegals. Mm-hmm. And so I could totally see that if it was a tougher on immigration stance, where it was like, listen, immigrants who have come here legally and through the correct channels, they have worked really hard to get here, and this is a disservice to them. And I've heard that actually a couple times from couple different creators who are also immigrants, and they're like, you don't understand what I went through to get to this country. Yeah. And the thing that I thought that was most interesting was one of these creators actually was like, we have bad people in the countries we came from. We left there hoping that we would leave them behind. We don't want them to follow us and come with us to the new country we came to. They're like, get tougher on your immigration. And I was like, listen, I was like, they can say it.
Yeah.
I won't.
They can say it.
I'm just amplifying what they're saying.
Yeah. And that's essentially was the point I was going to get to was they're two very different situations. Canada, most of the people that have come here legally. There's like, if you turn around and be like, you got to go, like that's a tough thing to do to somebody. Whereas when Trump is talking to the States, there's a lot of illegal immigrants down there. Or those who came over illegally. And like, that's what he's speaking to here. Everyone did so for the most part. It's really hard to cross in Canada illegally. It is hard to do.
Kind of. So one of the things that I was reading about was these companies who basically forge documents for folks and forge papers so that they can get into the country and come in. So I think that there's a whole group of people who like to dig into everybody's business, retask some of them, see right, and put them on this. They would love that. Destroying people's lives, like they love it. They'd be all for it. So stick them on that case, retask them.
I think they probably have in their contract, just like, as long as you can't brand me as racist, I'm all in. I get to ruin someone's life. Let's go.
I mean, we reduce the immigration crisis. We strengthen that. We retask some people that we all don't really like right now. It sounds like a win for everybody.
Gee.
People don't lose their jobs.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's like where things are at, and like this tough conversation. And admittedly, I'm not the most up to date on immigration law, if I'm being completely honest. But I'm just speaking that speaking generally, our situation in Canada is vastly different than the general situation happening in the States. So that's why you're definitely, from a political perspective, you're never going to hear that from one of our leaders. But secondly, just because our situation is different, there's nothing you're really going to do. There's really not going to be a huge, as much as people want to see it on the right, there's going to be no deportation campaign that's going to happen here.
Yeah, and like you said, like you're not going to hear it out of the leaders because I don't think it's even on their radar to deport people. Like that's a complete fabrication by the left. And I think also at the same time, on the totem pole of things again, so far down that totem pole, there's way, 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 way bigger things there. Election interference, the amount of scandals and money that has gone to inappropriate venues, the amount of money that's flowing out to other nations. Like, you know what I mean? There's so much up there to deal with first. That's like so far on the totem pole. I don't even think it's on the radar. So I don't think you're going to hear it out of anybody because I don't think it's even on their radar for things to do.
Right. I would be curious though, because again, never thought I would see this in Canada, but one of the issues that is starting to climb as a topic of importance among Canadians is the amount of mass immigration that's happening.
Yeah,
which is like crazy to me. I didn't think I would ever see here. So I'm curious if that continues to increase, will we start seeing politicians respond to it? I'm curious.
Yeah, but why though? It's the impact of immigrants on these essential services, right? Mm-hmm. It's the impact of immigrants on national identity too.
Yeah.
Because again, there's a couple different accounts I follow, and they talk specifically about that. About, you know, when you come to a new country, you're bringing the best of your old country and merging that, marrying that with the best of the new country to build and contribute to the culture, not to take it over.
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. I totally support that. I think that we can bring ideas and people and cultures and things together and make something even better. I'm totally for that. But I think what you're seeing now is you're seeing the breakdown of the Canadian culture and in not being rebuilt in a better way. I think that you're seeing basically segregated pockets of protected societies that are just not trying to integrate with the rest. Yeah. And so that's causing a divide. And then what happens is then you see like the far right go, see, look at that. And then they do the same thing, but just with their group. Yeah. And so you get a whole lot of people angry and not talking to each other. And then that's how hate breeds.
Yeah.
So.
And then true racism appears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like everybody calling each other a racist when they're not actually racist is like watering down the term.
Yeah.
And there is true racism out there. And I think that it's festering more so now because of all the other pressures happening. And, but yeah, you know, not using the correct pronoun and calling somebody racist about it, like, give me a freaking break. It does a disservice to all the people who actually fought real racism, I think. So that's just my own take.
Well, imagine a level-headed take. Gee, that's wild, dude.
But yeah,
there's it's like, I mean, admittedly, we're definitely walking on dicey territory for some. But I think it's a conversation that needs to happen. I think it's important, especially as we move forward here.
Yeah, just quickly though, I wanted to ask you one thing though. Like, speaking on the Canadian culture, I'm thinking about Canada Day. It's coming up in a week or two.
Woo.
What are your thoughts on all of it? Because like right now, like I used to love Canada Day. I was so proud of our country.
That is so racist.
Okay. Those buttons, we need to fix those.
No, that was a good one. That was well timed.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm all thrown off now. Basically, used to be pretty proud of our country. Right now, I'm feeling less proud of our country.
Okay.
I'm feeling like lots of crises, lots of bad leaders in government, like lots to be pretty ashamed of. And so it's like, how do you get back to that side of like feeling a lot of pride in the country? I'm thinking that the Oilers game, if they win it, it's going to help. Yeah. Sure. People be flying the Oilers flag, so the Canadian one. But I think that there's a real, like when we talk about Canada being broken, I think it's like there's definitely infrastructure things that are broken, but I think that it's the spirit of Canada that's really broken right now. Because like I think that I'm feeling that a little bit too, where it's like we've kind of lost our identity and lost our way a bit. And like honestly, at the top, when you see our leaders like making a fool of themselves on the world stage, like it's embarrassing. And then you have the States down there, who's basically like your Oilers, Calgary Flames kind of deal, down there going, they like to talk about their free healthcare. Look how crappy it is and how in shambles it is and all this stuff. And like, that was such a point of pride for Canada. And we're now going, holy crap, it's going to take me a year to see a doctor. Like, so the things that we had kind of really upheld, and, you know, healthcare, our reputation on the world stage, just our general demeanor towards others, which is, like I said, completely deteriorated because people are frustrated and racism is on the rise. So it's just like all these things, like how do you reconcile all that and then be like, woo, let's shoot off some fireworks. What are your thoughts?
So me speaking personally is I see Canada Day as celebrating the shred that we have left of the country I once knew. As you said, you mentioned all of them. People that are polite, people that love their hockey, people that, as you said, we had a reputation to upheld on the world stage. We had great opportunities here, and, you know, at the same time had good social nets, and people were united under the idea of just being good, loving people. And that is no longer here. As you said, it's now become pockets of individuals, pockets of cultures that don't connect, that don't talk to each other. And that kind of stinks. So what I do, at least my mentality with Canada Day is, yeah, sure, there's been a lot that have happened the past 9 years. There's stuff that happened hundreds of years ago, that people are like, oh, I don't know, how can you be proud of Canada? I was like, well, you know, this is now my political brain. But like, yeah, well, that's Marxism at its finest. Break down the national culture as much as you can so it doesn't have anything to identify with. I refuse to go into that. I choose to celebrate the positive things that has made this country great over the years. Have there been drawbacks? Absolutely. But I will always celebrate what has gone right. And, you know, we'll discuss the things that have gone wrong and make sure we right those wrongs, simply put. But that's kind of how I view Canada at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel that those on the left who really attacked our national identity over the past however long really want me to poo-poo Canada. I refuse to do that.
So from like almost like an appreciative inquiry lens, then what are the things that you're most proud of for the country
At this point in time?
Mm-hmm.
That we're still here. If I'm being absolutely honest. We as Canadians have had a lot thrown at us. And I'm not trying to be a Chrystia Freeland moment here. Like, we've gone through a lot, you know, but
we'll let you be clear.
Yeah. Let me be clear. But we have gone through a lot. A lot's been thrown at us. And, you know, we've talked about it on the show where there's times where we do this show and it's like getting really hard on the head because so much is being tossed our way. And I can only imagine what the regular person with 4 kids, 3 kids, 2 kids, mortgage, a job, a family to uphold has dealing with when, you know, little Susie's coming home from school and like, well, my teacher taught us this today. And you're just like, well, what are we doing here? Like, can we stay away from politics and just focus on the science and maths? That's what I'd like to do. I've already dealing with jabroni here at, you know,
24 Sussex Drive.
Yeah, that's it. No, but just I'm already dealing with stuff at work that I have to get done. I'm stressed at work and I have to come home and deal with the ideology that teachers are putting on my kids. Like, what's going on, man? And just that. And then Trudeau spending more of your money. Now your groceries are going up. Now your housing's going up. Now, your rent's not what it once was, you know, and just. But this is the cool part, is we're still here fighting for what the ideals that we once had. And that, to me, I think is the thing I'm most proud of and seeing people fight for. Still fighting to treat others with respect. Still fighting to bring others into the fold, no matter what culture they are, no matter what creed they come from. There are people out there who are trying to actively kill people who don't believe what they believe, or actively make sure that they can't work ever again if they don't believe what they believe. But there are still people, the mass majority, who are still fighting for the ideals that we once had. And those are the people I'm super proud of and super proud to call my fellow Canadians.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I feel like we should have superimposed the Canadian flag waving the wind behind you. But honestly, that's kind of where my mind went to. Was I was like, okay, when I look at the work that I do, because I work in healthcare, and healthcare is the biggest poo-pooed thing in Canada right now. And we're doing some really, really amazing things. And I wish I was legally allowed to tell you all about the different things that we're doing. But I will tell you that there's one product that we're trialing right now in a healthcare setting, where a person who had a problem for 3 years and their quality of life was terrible, this product in 3 weeks has given them back more freedom and more quality of life than the past 3 years of treatment has. And I look at that and I'm like, this is incredible. This is a Canadian-made invention put into practice in a Canadian facility and treating Canadian citizens and making Canadians' lives better. Everyone is winning here. And I'm like, this is awesome. We need more of this. Mm-hmm. But to be fair, like the media's like, nah, it doesn't get as much hits as Trump saying that he's going to do whatever. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I've kind of had to ground my mind a little bit. It's kind of like I get to see the tangible examples of good people doing good work for others. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where I'm bringing my Canada Day to. So I appreciate your take on that. And hopefully that helps spur a little more pride and inspiration in our listeners.
And the one thing I do appreciate a lot too is more than I ever have is the idea of freedom. The fact I actually have to fight for that within my own country's borders is crazy these days, but that is something I also do appreciate a lot too. So,
and we're still here.
Yeah.
So that's impressive right now. We haven't been kicked off the airwaves yet. So
as much as they've been trying to, eh? So this is going into kind of liberals kind of doing crazy things. So Chrystia Freeland was asked, I shouldn't say Chrystia, the liberals, there's a panel of liberals who asked a fun question. And it was the response to this question that I thought was really, really interesting.
If TikTok is potentially a national security risk, then why are you leaning on its influencers to deliver government messaging?
Sure. I mean, as you know, we do take the potential threat posed by TikTok very seriously, and our government has taken real, meaningful action there. That is the right thing to do, and that is certainly an issue which we are discussing with our allies. The broader question of foreign interference and how, as countries, we can protect our own democracy and the democracy of our partners.
That was felt like a Google Analytics, like find all the keyword terms that you want searched.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, so you told us nothing, but you walked around the question a lot. You're like, TikTok is a platform in which videos are made, and that is good. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like, it was so much nothing.
Also concerned about it. Yeah, we're concerned about it.
And we will, and there have been actions, and those actions are good.
But foreign interference is bad.
It just makes me think of, like, I think it was Family Guy back in the day, and they were like, Lois was trying to get elected, and she's just like 9/11, and everybody's like, oh, and she's like, what's bad? And everybody's like, yay! That's literally like what I think about when I see Chrystia Freeland. And she does this with everything. And I love that all the liberals on the panel are like, who's going to take this? Yeah. Pass it over to Freeland.
Yeah, that was the hearing the whisper there, like, are you going to take this?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I guess I will. And she had a theme of doing this. The same thing.
What makes you think Canadians are listening to you and anything your government is saying right now?
Because we are acting on the issues that matter the most to Canadians. Like, this is a very challenging time for Canadians. We have all collectively been through an incredible...
And I'm going to save you the rest of that because it's the same BS over and over again. But just like being asked pointed questions, being like, well, how can be the longest way I can answer not answering that question is what she says.
I know.
Oh my gosh. 2 minutes to answer that question.
Oh yeah. We are acting on issues. What actions? What issues? How?
For real.
Yeah.
So it's just like, the liberals are always constantly in a stunned state, especially in Toronto right now with the St. Paul's riding, the by-election, which has been a liberal stronghold for ever. They are at risk of losing it, and they're freaking out. And we pulled up a tweet earlier this week that you really wanted to read out there, Reg.
I love this one. So basically, this is coming from Scorpio Karen 18 on Twitter, and she says, "I have voted Liberal my entire adult life. This isn't the Liberal Party any of us voted for. I don't know what this is, but it's not the Liberal Party. The entire party is too tainted and corrupt. Even many longtime Liberal supporters see that. It wouldn't matter now who from the party stepped up, short of Jody Wilson-Raybould or Jane Philpott coming back, but they need to burn it to the ground and restart."
Woo!
And I was like, that's amazing. And that came out of the original tweet. And the original tweet was basically just talking about how they don't see the Liberals actually taking this at all. They're like, you know what? I don't see how they can win this. Mm-hmm. I still think that they have a chance of winning this because when you look at the polling numbers that came out, so it was like 39% Liberal, 35% Conservative. Mm-hmm. So it's a tight race. It really could be anybody's race. And if there was ever a spot to look for foreign interference, I would be watching that spot very closely.
So is this one where there's been a lot of talks that because it's such a stronghold, that if it flips blue, like this will be the moment they're like, yeah, we need to get Trudeau to step down. And, the original tweet you're talking to is from Tracy Wilson out in Saskatchewan, who works for the CCFR, as people should know, is a gun lobbying agency.
Oh, we met her.
Yeah, we met her. And this is kind of that was a response to that tweet. So the issue here from a political perspective is like, yeah, we want to see the Liberals burn because of how awful they've made everything and how they just aren't even a Canadian party from my perspective at this point. But if it's true that there's inner rumblings in the party that like, if this one goes blue, this will be the moment where they just have like a hostile takeover and kick Trudeau out. We want the Liberals to win that riding. We want it to happen.
I don't know.
I don't want anyone else running than Trudeau in the next election. I want him trampled out.
I disagree with you on that, and I'll tell you why.
All right, hit me.
So I would like to see that one go Conservative because I think that'd be lovely. That'd be a nice little icing on the cake. Because if Trudeau doesn't step down after that, like they've dug such a deep grave for themselves that ain't everybody and nobody's going to come back from that. But if he does step down and they put somebody else in his place, then it gives the Liberals a shot at actually getting some seats. I don't think that will win them a majority by any stand, but I think that would actually they would give them a chance to become a proper opposition party, because I don't think that having an absolute government of only one party is a good idea. I think that that's not the best step forward for democracy. I think that having a healthy opposition is key to a good democracy. And I also think that if the opposition then became the Bloc de Québécois, like, I can't even say their name without cringing. Like, that would be a one party, a one province party as the opposition to a country. Like, oh man, what would happen is that Pierre would get up there and he'd be like, oh, we need to do this, change the CPP. And then you'd have, an MP from Hull come up and be like, but how does this benefit Quebec? And it would be like, oh my God, like everything it would be awful is what it would be. So I think that for the sake of democracy in Canada, we need a strong opposition party. And I think that a strong opposition party benefits the country, because we're seeing right now what happens with a government that's out of control. And I don't think anybody's immune to the toxic effects of too much power. So I think that a supermajority for the Conservatives, I don't think that's a great thing for Canada. I do think that I hope they get a majority so they can reverse a bunch of the crap that Trudeau's got in there. If I could predict the future and say like what would be a good flow of things for me, I think that if you had a majority government to start out with the Conservatives so they could undo a bunch of crap, and then 2 more consecutive minority governments, I think that we'd be in a good place, because after they kind of do the major things that need to happen, like repealing the carbon tax, lowering income tax, maybe throwing some tariffs on a few more things, and getting us back into a place where we can unlock our natural gas reserves and actually start putting this country back together again, putting immigration under control, tying that to housing starts, things that just make sense. They're, to quote their common sense conservative crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like these kind of things. I think that if they can do that within their first term and then continue that with some scrutiny over the next couple of terms, great. I'd be a happy camper. And I think that would actually put us in a really strong spot. But yeah, I don't like the idea of the Liberals just being completely stomped, even though I hate the Liberals for what they've done. I think that I'd like to see Mr. Trudeau and Freeland and Guilbeault all just like get in a truck and drive far away from Canada. But as far as the rest of the party, I think, or maybe throw that other stupid guy who called that press conference way back when. Yeah. Like, forget his name.
Yeah, McKinnon.
There we go. Yeah. Throw him in the truck too.
Yeah, get lost. Yeah, I think that's interesting. I get it. I think I'm more of a. I think that is more of a forward thinking or future thinking perspective. I'm in the. I want you to be rebuked so hard that you will never do this again moment. That's how I feel. Where I'm like, I'm okay with like a wicked supermajority for 4 years. If I'll live with that. I'm okay with that as long as that party gets the message that they are never to do this ever again. That's kind of where I'm at. But but again, I like your perspective because I think it's more mature. But if I'm just being honest, but speaking of maturity, though, I have a question for you.
Go for it.
So they have a supermajority. They said undo a bunch of things. Do we change the lyrics back for "O Canada"? Good question.
I sing at All Our Sons Command anyway, and it's funny because we're seeing a lot of the legislation that's been put out around drafts around the world, and they're always drafting the young men. So, and like what happened? Like this is specifically speaking to the soldiers that fought in the world wars. Not to say that there weren't women who contributed and who fought, because there were a lot. My grandmother was one of them, but it was predominantly the young men that went out there and fought and lost their lives that were on the front lines. So I think that in All Our Sons Command, I think it's completely appropriate given the history of Canada and given the things that we've been through. So I understand how they're like in All of Us Command is one thing, but I think it's a historical nod to the wars that we fought and been a part of. So I think that it's just, again, on the basket of low-hanging fruit, like, sure, go nuts. Is that going to actually do anything meaningful for the country? In my opinion, no. Like, it's just gonna draw attention from the things that actually matter. Like, income tax is ridiculous right now. You should not be disincentivizing people from earning a living in this country. That's an issue that needs to be top of line, right up there next to carbon tax. Make it easier for people to survive in this country. All of Our Sons Command, or All of Us Command, it's stupid, man. Like, when they made the change, I was like, why?
I think that should have been signed to everybody of like the things that were important to the government at that time. I was like, yeah, we're going to change the lyrics to "O Canada." Like, wow, that's what we're worried about here. Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I agree. But there's something that kind of hit me was, like Canada Proud did a whole thing, or like, at the Oilers game when everyone's saying, "In All Our Sons Command, the true heart of Canada's still here." But like there's still a substantial amount of the group that said All of Us Command. And that's what it hit me. I'm like, 9 years, this government, like a full generation of kids have come up through this government knowing that's the version of "O Canada" now.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really interesting. So I know people feel a certain way about it. I don't even, if I'm being honest, I bring up the question because I don't even know how I feel about because I'm kind of the same boat. I'm like, what are we wasting our time on? However, I want every little fingerprint of that man Trudeau wiped from our country at the same time as well. So that's how I feel.
You're like, get the bleach and
dude,
burn
straight
it.
up.
Like,
that's how I feel. I want
bleach it, nuke it, get rid of it.
Every inch of him has to be gone out of our legislation and everything. That's how I feel. I just want him gone. And this is going to be a bit of a little exaggeration to some. But how Germany felt about Hitler is how I feel about Justin Trudeau. Every little thing gone. I don't want to see any of this Russia crap where they still have statues of Lenin hanging around and crap and Stalin. No. Trudeau, gone. So
Rename the airport.
I'm tear it all down is how I feel. I get him out. He was never associated with our country is how I feel. But we will move on to wildcard segment, sir.
I don't have my wild card ready, but I'll just tell you what it was because it wasn't that funny, but I got a kick out of it. And I was like, basically it was this old lady and they're like, you can do it, Granny. And she's like, yeah. And she's got this chainsaw and she takes down the tree and it goes flying, almost takes her out and then falls beside her. And she's still going onto the chainsaw and it's just like running off the rails. And I was like, it's kind of how I feel like our government is leading us right now. It's just they've given somebody a lot of power that they can't handle and they don't know how to do.
So Trudeau's an old granny?
Basically. It's a lot better than a lot of the other memes I've been seeing about Trudeau, and especially with him and Macron.
Oh, gee.
It's like, oh my God. Have you seen any of those?
Seen a fair amount, yes.
Yeah. But give me your wild card.
So I'll set this up where, this could be offensive to our listener base, but I'll challenge you to be able to laugh at yourself a little bit. We've seen those on the street interviews, people interviewing liberals and they say dumb things and whatever, or kind of putting them in a weird spot where they have to answer a hard question with something. Well, this gentleman went to Turning Point USA and did the same thing to one of a young conservative woman, and it was funny.
Would you rather date an illegal immigrant or a liberal?
Oh my gosh. That is like the worst question ever. I don't know. Like, probably. Oh my gosh. I would say I would say an illegal immigrant.
She was too stunned to speak. And I would say an illegal immigrant. I was like, oh my gosh.
It makes me think of the kombucha girl meme. Like, Oh man, too funny.
You gotta laugh at yourself sometimes, you know. And I was like, this poor girl. It's just, getting rattled and razzed in the political circles after that one.
Yeah,
but
that was pretty tame. I was expecting something a lot worse than that. I was expecting
after what happened last week.
Yeah, I was expecting them to come out with something and then them to totally get it wrong.
Oh yeah.
You know, what do you think of the state of Canada not singing the American national anthem or something like that? You know what I mean? And then be like, I think that state should get their government. You know what I mean? That's what I was expecting.
Talking to Americans.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Rick Mercer style. Like, but
no, nada.
No.
Well, it was a good show there. We hit some dicey territory. People hate us and some people love us. And that's the beauty of an Elevate episode podcast. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be waking up to the results of the Stanley Cup Finals,
heading to the gym to get in a good pump,
or staying positive as we enter Canada Day festivities. 2 weeks away. Whatever you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace. Psych, 1 week.